So I'll teach a couple of little chokes from here. Just short and sweet. So with back control and being a smaller person, I think of this as kind of like a great equalizer because it's harder for them to fight me off their back. So I kind of think of just being a tick, just sucking myself to them really, really tight. I like my top hand pointed down, my bottom hand pointed over, because it gives me all this play here without him being able to break this grip. So we're here, he starts trying to fight my grips, all this stuff. Opening. He's worried about this hand, so I'm not opening straight down, I'm opening out. Thumb goes in, finding the other collar, and I'm just bringing my elbows down. So with any collar choke, rule of thumb, anytime I'm choking with the collar, I never want to choke out. I always want to choke straight down. Even if I'm choking in my guard, it always finishes at my hips. Always want to think of bringing them down. So, we're here, I open. You're going to catch that once or twice. They figure out what you're doing, they're going to pull that collar away. So I start to grab it, there's no collar there. I'm not gonna reach out and take my time to find all this. Immediately, hand comes out, whatever I can grab. I don't care what it is. And I'm not doing this big movement like everybody thinks when you're throwing a bow and arrow. I even loosened up my grip on that one. I'm just gonna lean to his hip. When I lean to his hip, I don't have to worry about my elbow flaring. I don't have to worry about separation happening. I'm just worried about laying to his hip. Here, open, no collar. Grab whatever we can, leaning to the side. I go to throw this one, but he loosens my grip. He's big and strong, he starts to loosen my grip. Well, now I can keep pulling, I'm never gonna finish the choke from here. He's also got more play in my elbow. He's gonna start to get out. So what I wanna do, as soon as he starts making that space, I'm laying him down, straighten. That's the only time I'm gonna tell you to take that chest away. Straighten the arm out, throwing the leg over. Stops him from turning in, stops him from turning out. I can just lay here and he's eventually gonna tap. Push it in. Another little thing to think about for those of us that have long arms, I don't have this problem, but some of us do. Flaring the wrist is a huge detail to add into these chokes. Any choke that you throw from the back with the collar, adding a wrist flare is gonna make it that much tighter, that much faster. What I mean, here, I'm not, and he's probably feeling it as I'm doing it, I'm not just pulling, I'm flaring my wrist into his neck the whole time. So I can take something from here, here, to here. So just that little tiny wrist flare makes a huge difference. So let's add that. Everything same. Loosens it, we lay it down. I go to bring this over and he's like, I'm just gonna lift my head up to kind of take that pressure. Not quite that way. No. Kind of up off the, yes, listen, notice lifting it up off the floor gives you a little bit. If you can. We bring it all the way over. Now again, I can just sit there.
To me, I've been a big fan of these bell chokes recently, and so the first one I'm going to go over is this. Show the Brabo Choke the regular way, and I'll show the Brabo Choke in two different ways that they choose to defend. So, go through the Brabo. I'm in the regular side control position. I got my hand under his head here. So as I'm looking away, another good opportunity. Everything here is going to be based on taking his gi out, taking his lapel out. So I'm going to take this out with my right hand. I'm going to feed it to the hand that's behind his head. So now I got this grip here. A decent control position as well too. Now depending on what he does, he might naturally want to turn to me, or sometimes I might have to go up to my knee a little bit to get him to turn to his side. So as he turns, I'm taking this hand and I'm feeding that lapel to the hand on this side. So from there, your traditional Brabo Choke, I'm just going to go on the tuft of his gi here. I'm going to bring my elbow in, bring everything together for that finish. So I'm feeding here, coming over, dropping down, I'm feeding it. He goes to his side, pop to the belly. I get in here, right? So he knows, he starts putting his hand up here because he doesn't want to, because if I have to go here, he's going to put his hand there to defend it. So as he does this, which is perfect, a lot of people do this, and I end up finding this more time than the other choke because people are naturally going to go to defend it. just using this. I'm getting on his arm, I'm pushing, and I'm getting top heavy with my body. So now I'm not even touching him. Now it's the weight of me crushing on his shoulder, and it's probably already starting to get tight. For the actual finish, I can just come across, yeah. And really all I'm doing is crushing down on his shoulder with my weight and hugging him while I'm pulling that at the same time. So I actually find that a lot more often. So okay, same thing, everything's the same where we were. I'm feeding it. I got in this grip, Seth turns to his side. I feed it here. And boom, as I go to press down, one way he can defend is he just starts putting his mat on the ground like so. As he's pushing back, I'm not squeezing down as hard, right? So now what I do with that, grab my hand, pull it across my body because now I got an arm lock there. So his defense for the crush is going to be the pushing. Boom, as he's pushing, and it's right there because the way his hand is even positioned, it's going exactly in that direction. So you're putting the elbow across the body. That's where the fulcrum is, that it's actually doing the arm lock on it. We can turn this way just so you can see what we're talking about. Yeah.
I grab the same side ankle that I want to attack. Obviously, I'm pulling this to me as I'm straightening out this leg. And so when I'm straightening this out, I'm using this other foot to pull me butt cheek to butt cheek. Like I want to be as close as I can to this guy. And so I'm pinching this around. I'm getting this heel in his hip joint, all right? And I'm closing off on the other side, like on his butt cheek is where my shoelaces are. All right, so the top of my foot is over here. And what that provides me is a better clamping mechanism to cover this ankle, all right, and heel. So if he starts pulling it down, it's like I've got a little bit more structure than I would like if it was just like right there, right? And so a lot of the misconceptions is, like I see a lot of people do this, is they'll go into the same side butt cheek as the leg I'm attacking, and you can see the difference of like where my other foot is, and it puts a lot of unnecessary strain on my knee. So that's why I come over here. It allows me a better clamp without putting the stress and compression right there, because I've got terrible knees. And so once we're here, I clamp down, and my litmus test for making sure that this is a good clamp, like at least in drilling, so if he can move back and forth and side to side, like I shouldn't move. There should be no relationship change between the knee and my knees. All right?
His knee line shouldn't change.
Right. So if he's moving around, I'm all right here, and like even without holding on. And one important detail, both of my knees are higher than his, or closer to him than his own knee. That's a must. The more my butt is in, the better, and that knee. All right. So let's just practice getting in that position. So we've got this buried, and so focusing on getting this upper body attack now, I'm using my elbow as a pivot point. So generally, sometimes I can just do this, and dive under like I'm guillotining that ankle, but it is better to control the situation using my secondary hand here to pull up on the Achilles and drive that into my armpit as much as I can. It's the same motion as like going for a heel hook right here, but I'm just creating the space that I need to get this under and tight. And as kind of like a save point here, so I don't have to worry about the grip. If I need to adjust other things in the meantime, I pull this down and I lock it in. All right, so that way, as long as this grip is tight on this hand, I don't have to worry about this getting lost or anything like that. So if he starts moving or starts breaking down a foot, like I can start dealing with this problem, and then I can move on to my break, like once everything is set. So if I grab high, there's two things that can happen. All right, so I'm grabbing and making sure this is tight. If it's not a loose grip, I can extend back as far as I need to, and that heel's not going to go through my forearm bones. So it's like an automatic stop. So if I'm up here and it's not working, it's because there's no leverage on it. It's the middle of a shin, it's not gonna break. So I scoot back to make sure I feel that heel on my forearm, and now I know that I'm where I need to be. Or if I grab high, some people instinctively freak out and they start shoving that leg out. Like, so if he pulls his leg back out, now he just set the position for me, all right? And so once I'm there, I get this through. Depending on the size of the leg and my grip and all that stuff, like sometimes my hand will be peeking out like this, other times it'll be all the way through. If it's all the way through, I can grab a grip like this and bring everything up, and now I fall to my side and I can extend for the break. Or if it's down here, I can make a fist and pull up. So in both instances, this hand that's underneath the leg needs to come up to my chin. So a lot of people will try to finish leg locks with everything down here, and you see how far I have to extend before it even remotely gets tight? Now, if I bring this up here, he's tapping before I'm even falling back for the ankle lock. So if I get this tight and I fall here, I extend with my hips as well as arch my back, and I'm keeping the same relation and distance between my chin and hand when I'm arching my back and bringing my hips forward. So imagine you're finishing an armbar here. That's exactly what you're doing. So finishing mechanics here, right here we've got our grip. I pull the Achilles up, give myself room, act like I'm guillotining the foot. If I grab too high and need to adjust, I can walk back, make a fist, cup under. I imagine like I'm sucking my thumb here. I bring it up, fall to my shoulder, and now I bring my hips in as I'm arching back. And one small detail here is I want to feel the toes just peeking out of my armpit. If I've got his whole foot, like if I feel his whole foot behind my shoulder, I am too far deep. So if I do this to Brent, so I'm here, and if I lean and I lackadaisical with this foot, if you come over here and you see how this ankle is now out from under his thigh, he can literally pull that to him and pull his butt towards me. So here, you do the ankle lock to me, I'm gonna do this to you. So if I feel this come up here, I grab over the heel and I start bringing my butt for a toe hold in. So I'm pulling it back right there. So that is why it's like, if that happens, we kind of got to abandon the position here or flare this back out. If I'm here, you have to keep it buried. Like a good litmus test is this thigh should be over this way. The only time I'm bringing this forward is if I'm going to come out here and start for like a toe hold or heel hook. Moving on, of what we can do, just kind of I guess continuing, we go for a toe hold, off, and all of this stuff is like IBJJF legal in the gi for, I want to say brown belt. So if I'm here, and Brent's just not tapping to the leg at all, like he's some funky Brazilian that doesn't have ankle joints, cross this out, and now I bend this leg over my thigh. So I'm making sure to point this up because I can't really bend this foot right here. I've got to pull my knees up to bend this and isolate the ankle. And then I sit up and go for the toe hold. So the setup for that, and the rationale is a straight leg is always harder to finish. So if he puts the boot on or whatnot, I'm not finishing the ankle lock because his leg's locked out straight. So I'm going to the head and the end of the lever. So I take this out, I pull this up, and then I push this foot down. I have to bring my knees up to the ceiling to rotate him over to be able to push this effectively. Once I push this down, his leg's no longer straight, the pressure is isolated in the ankle. So then I take this arm, I sit up, and it's basically a Kimura grip. Right here, I bring my elbows together and bring his foot the rest of the way to his butt. So a lot of the time, it's like he doesn't like this, so he's gonna straighten out his leg again. All right, so what I can do is I can take this position, rotating over the leg. I'm gonna grab here, and flip over. Back to the Achilles right here. I'm planting this arm, so that way I can lift up with my feet and then put my knees right under where his thigh is. I have to make sure that I'm not coming up like this. Did you see how much space there is between my hips and his hips now? It's like, so when I'm here, I'm backing up into him. So when I'm doing this, like I'm putting my butt right in his chest. And so now I can take my secondary hand on his foot, dive this under, and I wave on the floor. And I'm grabbing my own thigh, and now I'm arching up. We get this position, we're here, he straightens back out, turns, back up into him, I can switch hands, wave the floor, grab my thigh, and so the finish here with that is I'm putting my hips heavy and I'm arching my back here.
I'm going to teach you how to make it work from the ground. Because usually when you do a standing guillotine, you can do the thing where you just wrench up really hard. But on the ground, that doesn't work as well because partly the guy's just going to come up with you, And if I put him in my guillotine from guard and I try to pull straight up with my wrist, a lot of times he'll just pop his head out. Does that happen a lot? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that for you first. We don't have to try to guillotine by lifting up. I'm going to try to guillotine by pushing his head down. If you take your head, like I can't even talk normally. If I put my head down like this, I'm not breaking my neck or anything. It just changes my voice, just compressing that. So what I do is I put my hand in there to make it even tighter. Head down over my hand and it's a compression. So that's how you do it. And I'm also going to change your leg position because I want to give you a little bit more advantage. If he's, him and I, if I'm trying to guillotine him from guard, it's about 50-50. Because he's going to defend it, I'm going to try to do it. I don't have a big mechanical leverage advantage. There's a good chance he's going to get out of it. But if I can do this position where both my legs are on this side of his body, I'm keeping him on the same side of my body as the side I'm using to do the choke. I'm using my right arm, I want to keep him on my right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step up and scoop my hips under him, and my right leg goes across his belt, my left leg goes over his back. Now I have a tremendous amount of leverage, and even with us having comparable size, he's not going to be able to get out of the guillotine as easily. So try that one. You want? Yes. So there's two key things. One is, the important thing is folding his head down with your hands, chin strapping him. And you kind of look at your watch as you do it. That's going to make him tap out. And the other thing is, keep him on the same side of your body that you're doing the guillotine from. Because if he gets in the middle, then you lose the leverage advantage. If he goes to that size, you lose the guillotine completely. So if I'm guillotining here, good, it doesn't work. Does it make sense? So anyway, so I want to have space. If he's reaching up with his arm, I want to have space not to be under the arm. So I'm going to drive my right shoulder into him and get my arm on the side I want it to be. Then I'm going to make that pinky to the wrist crease thing, and my arm goes down his back. Even if he passes to the correct side now, it's still going to choke him.
He's got a good position, and right now, he has total control because he's got everything. I got nothing here just to survive. My arms are out, my feet are out, okay? So what I want to do to begin with is start addressing each one of my limbs. So we'll start with this one. I want to make sure that my elbow, I'm going to bring this elbow inside of his hip. I'm going to bring his elbow inside. Boom, right there. Now, just barely inside of his hip. I don't want to go down here because he's got my wrist. He can smash. If he's at this end of the lever, he's got a lot of power to compress my arm and he can just smash it. So when I bring my elbow in, I'm just going to go just slightly, just right there. So now I got a lot of strength there. So I can kind of hold him up basically right there, okay? The other thing is this hand. I don't want it out here where he can grab it. I want it to be underneath. I want it to be here. But if it's stuck out here, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to bring it out and around for him to get, okay? So I got to get in position, but I got to get there safely. So what I'm going to do is slide down his arm here to keep it trapped. Then swing my hand underneath his face, come up, and I almost want to be able to put my hand on his back so that I can touch his back. So now look, I'm basically just cross-facing him, and his face is driving into my forearm. This inside leg, I want to be able to feel his leg here. So it's like bone on bone, my femur on his femur. This outside leg is posted, and I'm turned at an angle. So in other words, I'm not laying flat on my back. If I lay flat on my back, this is giving him a flat surface, and it's making him feel good. If I'm on the bottom, I want it to be as uncomfortable for him as possible, okay? So I'm gonna put my thigh on his thigh here, post, everything is out. And I can even make my head heavy on his arm just wrapped underneath my head. I wanna make my head heavy on his arm to try to control him as much as possible, even though that I'm on the bottom, okay? So what I'm gonna do on this first one is I'm not gonna walk away. See there's space between my leg and him now? I'm not gonna walk away to bring my knee in. I'm gonna keep constant contact with his thigh. Run my knee up to his hip and shoot it across. Bring it in here. So I'm gonna bring my knee straight in through that spot. Then I want to underhook. So I want to take and swim underneath George's arm to get an underhook, but he's not going to give it to me. He's not going to give me this space, okay? So I got to create the space. So what I do is if I just start driving my elbow to the ceiling, look, there's my space. So I drive that elbow. I create that space. Now once I've created it, I'm going to swim under, shuck that arm all the way over my head. Once it clears my head, I'm going to sit up and put my head there to keep him from bringing it back. I don't want him bringing that arm back. Okay? Then I reach across his back, and I'm going to grab his lat. Head down. My foot, this hook, I'm going to drop it down so it's right here behind his knee. Right behind his knee. So my body position now is head down, arm to his lat, hook is behind his knee right here. Then I'm going to post and drive into him like I want to take his back. He doesn't like that, so when he drives back, I pull, scoot, boom. Dropping right in the bucket. This hook is going to drop down to behind his knee here. Okay? Now, when I drive into him, he's going to want to drive back. He drives back into me. I'm doing two things. Okay? So I drive in, he drives back. He drives back. Two things are happening. I'm pulling here and pushing here. I'm just going to twist it. Okay? So here it is. Push. He pushes back. Pull. Push. Boom. Okay? Every time I get my guard passed and I get inside control, I'm going to be here. This is where I want to be. Keep this big guy off of me, okay? Well, sometimes they catch on to the idea of you bringing this knee in. So he'll take his right hand and post it on the side of my hip. And he's like, no, you ain't bringing it in now, buddy. So he just stopped me from bringing that knee in, okay? Well, that's okay. All I'm going to do is kind of turn into him a little bit. This top hand, I'm going to reach under and through and grab his hand. One right here that he posted by my hip. I'm going to grab it. Here's one key detail. When I reach under, I want to be deep enough that my elbow is out so that I can pin that hand down. This hand over here, I'm just going to grab or post on the side of his leg and then watch. See how his knees are spread apart? I'm going to walk that knee. I'll lock his knees together, turn, roll him right over.
Now, if you have a problem with your triangle and you're just doing jiu-jitsu, most of the time it's because you're having a problem with this rotation, or you're biting at an angle, not lined up with the shoulder, and then you're going to be on your feet. So if you really want to break down a triangle, you want to be, look how I changed my position, and now I don't have to do any rotation on my leg. I want to flex my foot so that my heel is very heavy. Not a straight toe. That makes our calf like mushy, and it's hard to be heavy with your bike, so we want to flex our foot and be heavy right here. Okay? So once again, anchoring position, pulling the base, pushing the base, pulling the posture. On our elbow and our hip or butt cheek. And this hand is going to be, this foot is going to be sticking his bicep, so when he tries to escape. Now my knee needs to be pointed up to keep this arm straight, and I like to keep it close to my hip and in my side. When he goes into a head up position, we can push our leg and begin to rotate our body. I pull him into my leg bite, okay? And now that I have his arm where he can't exactly come back and attack my open leg, I'll shrimp myself into this position. Now, okay, so my leg is in his armpit space. His shoulder remains out of the triangle, and my bite is now still at an angle. So I want to stay out of his armpit space. So I'm holding his sleeve here. I'm sorry, am I heavy on it? Okay. So I'm going to slide my leg out of that elbow space and look to be in his tricep or his elbow. Okay, now I want to take the inside of my leg and cover the front of his shoulder. I'm trying to make that space very small so that I have a very tight and strong bite. Okay, so you can see I'll slide, and I'll even use the front of my leg to push his head into the triangle bite. And I'll just simply lift my leg into this space. No lazy foot, flex your foot so that the bottom of your foot is exposed. Keep the arm straight, and you can have like a two-part attack on the elbow, on the triangle, very heavy. Okay, so we found this anchoring position, sleeve. I'm gonna anchor his hip and pull his posture over. Anchor his hip, pull his posture over. He'll probably try to grab the gi. Remember, I'm not on my back, I'm on my elbow. Because a really strong guy, if I go to my back, he can pull my hand open, all right? And I want to be over my weight, keeping that very strong, and my weight's kind of helping me if I'm a weaker person, okay? I don't like my elbow to be pointed out. I'm going to scoot so my elbow's pointed up, and that's going to help me keep the leg straight. Now I have enough hip space to find the inside of the bicep and stay sticky on the bicep. When he tries to rotate and circle his hand out, my goal is to just stay sticky. Okay? When his head goes up and his hip tries to open up to find his base back underneath his posture, so he's going to come forward, I'm going to bite, and I'm going to push myself into the correct angle, pulling him also into the bite. Okay? Now I'm pulling the sleeve. I'll find a heavy heel bite. I'll slide my leg to keep that arm open, and then I'll cover his shoulder, lifting my leg, finding a very strong triangle bite. Now you found yourself in that anchoring position, okay guys? Alright, so when we talk about anchoring, remember, we're pulling his posture over his base, we're opposing that base with our foot. We don't want to have our knee in a place where he can be heavy, so I'm going to always scoot and be behind that arm. I want to find my leg to be sticky on his bicep. Now, there's two reasons I won't go into a triangle, and that's when his head goes down and this collar is no longer really functional for me, or he steps that leg that has the base up and he gets too high with his head, and I feel like my triangle bite can't reach. Okay, so go back down. So now when the head goes down and my collar is like really not working, I'll take my hand, and you can grab the gi too, but I'll take my hand and I'll scoop it underneath. Now I'm gonna pull, okay? And when I pull, this leg is gonna bail and it's gonna kick out, and my leg is gonna come over the shoulder, okay? So as I scoot and pull, I'm gonna scoot and pull, and we're gonna come over. I usually look for the hip or the leg, okay? I never want them to be in a hip up position, so once I find my arm extended, I'll switch my hip position so my butt is now this way. I'll be tucking the hand, and I want to flatten this person out. And it might take you a scooting out a couple times. Now, I want to now free my hands up. So how do I do that? I need to sit up and use my body to keep this arm trapped. So I'll sit up and use my body to keep this arm trapped, and I'll look to be heavy on the shoulder, okay? Heavy on the shoulder. Now, in my experience, I always felt like omoplatas were a very low percentage finish. I trained with a lot of teams, and I trained with some people that are very big and strong. So whenever I tried to finish on the big guys, they can, even from a back position, they can kind of pick me up. And then from the young, flexible kids, like I could take the shoulder all the way over in the omoplata, and it didn't seem to bother them at all, okay? So I always want to secure my position. So I always like this as more of a sweep or a progressive position where now I'm not on my back anymore. But I like to switch this from omoplata to Kimura. And how do I do that? All right, so I still want to be heavy. So as I mean heavy, I'm thinking about my knee being heavy on that shoulder. Okay, I want to control this elbow, and I'll switch the position and drive that elbow to the ground. So I drive this elbow to the ground. Okay, so now I'm going to switch it from omoplata to Kimura. And be careful, because his hand is already elevated because it's on me in an elevated position behind, like kind of lifting behind his elbow. Now I am going to give up the length of his arm and bite above, below his elbow at the forearm, not here. So I'm going to bite above, okay, here. All right. Now I'm going to sit up and to attack the Kimura instead of the omoplata. And there's usually this wrist lock that'll happen too. Okay, so I'll sit up and attack in the Kimura position in the wrist lock. So if he has his hand turned, it won't be a wrist lock, but it's still like a Kimura position. Okay, so that's one of my favorite ways to finish this position when I'm able to come up in the Omoplata position, but I changed to a Kimura attack. Okay.
Yes, sticky hook. Good. Scoop grip in front. Yeah, grab your seam. What you need to be sealing now. Yeah, there you go.